Hi, how are you? So glad that you can join us. He's Scott Bischoff. I'm Sean Baligian. Because we lack creativity, this is the draft show. But like, you could come up with some snazzy name or something like that. No, we're talking about the draft, so it's a draft show.
Yeah.
Does that work with you? You should see the look he's giving me when he turned his head sideways.
It's the brain, like, engaging.
Okay.
Smoke will be here shortly. We could come up with something like, something else, but do you want to?
The draft show. We'll go with the draft show for now because, well, I don't know if you know this. We're going to be talking about the draft.
Oh, okay. That works fine.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
Scott Bischoff, if you don't know who he is, you've been scouting for a while, coaching for a while, writing for a while, doing a whole bunch of things. This is kind of your wheelhouse.
This is a fun time of the year.
You and I have done things like this for a few years now, right?
Yeah.
A show like this, we did it just audio in the past, but now you're stuck seeing our mugs. I'm sorry for that. But
not good.
It's a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I enjoy doing it. And before we talk about this year, can we go back to last year? Because you and I were villains to many people.
Why?
Well, and if you remember, there was one person who used to talk to us a lot, and then all of a sudden he stopped talking to us. You know exactly who I'm talking about.
What did we do?
You know exactly who I'm talking about, and I forgive you for it. You know who you are. I forgive you for it. It's okay. You and I...
Come back to the bosom?
You're more than welcome back.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll hold you dear. No, you and I were in the drafted quarterback club last year.
I have not left the club.
Nope, nor have I. And you know what I would say to everybody out there who was mad at us last year? How do you feel a year later?
Yeah.
How do you feel right now? Seriously, I'm not being funny. I'm not trying to throw it in your face. How do you feel right now?
So let's go forward a year and assume we're going to have the same conversation in a year. Mm-hmm. Right? And the same scenario presents itself that you're not in great position to get one of the premier quarterbacks in the class, but you're in position to have to give away a lot to get up to get your guy. And you could have had that guy potentially last year. That was the reason. That was the reasoning why we went there last year, was that they were in position to not have to give anything. It was almost like tanking without tanking, right? So you could have ended up with a quarterback of the future, and that doesn't mean he was going to have to play last year. That's kind of the point, is that even this year, if you're keeping Stafford, you can draft a quarterback early and go like what Kansas City did with Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes, and let Alex Smith play and let Patrick Mahomes sit for a year and then take the reins. And I think that's the smart approach.
Or Green Bay has done what, twice in 15 years?
Yeah,
by drafting a quarterback and saying, hey, we're also going to take his heir apparent. I'm going to stop you right there, because you know what it was last year? To me, it was the all or nothing argument, which I scream about every opportunity I get. Well, why do you hate Matthew Stafford? I thought you were a Stafford guy. I like Matthew Stafford a lot. Mm-hmm. I think Matthew Stafford has developed into a darn good quarterback. Doing this has nothing to do with Matthew Stafford.
Let's get it out of the way. Mm-hmm. The Lions' issues have nothing to do with Matthew Stafford.
I firmly believe that. At all.
It's not about his inability to do anything. It's just where they are as a franchise with how much work needs to be done to kind of bring it back, and how long that's going to take. In the best case, it's going to be years, right? And the problem with Stafford is he's good enough here that he's going to play you in position to where you're in purgatory. You're picking between, like where they are this year, or 10 or 12. And in that scenario, it's hard year after year after year to hit home runs in the draft. You know what I mean? So again, anything we're saying from a quarterback perspective, it's not about Stafford or Stafford's inability here. It's just, as a 35, 36-year-old player, when this franchise gets turned around in I think what's likely your best case scenario, what is he giving you at that point?
Absolutely.
And what is he worth now to other teams? And there are a lot of teams right now who need quarterbacks. And Stafford's still young enough and still plays at a high enough level that you can get enough. It's just there's a financial problem with that decision. And I mean, I think we need to talk about that first.
No, and Scott, what we don't know, okay, I don't know what, as we sit here today on the 21st, January 21st, I don't know what the Lions' plans for him are. I don't know if Matthew Stafford wants to be here. I don't know the answer to that. I can tell you, in reading the tea leaves a little bit, I think that there's going to be a parting of the ways sooner rather than later. I really, truly believe that. No inside information, just based on reading the tea leaves and hearing some things from, quite frankly, hearing some things from one side and not hearing some other things from the other side makes me think that the parting of the ways comes sooner than any of us thought.
And it will be painful this year if it does happen. There's his current cap hits $33 million. If they move on, there's $19 million of dead cap that they will owe the cap, right? So there's $19 million, and if they trade him, they're eating it all in the first year. You're not able to spread that out over 2 years. You're just not. So are the Lions able to swallow $19 million to move Stafford? That is, I think, the entire conversation in a nutshell.
And it's time.
It is time. It really is. The thing is that if it saves you $14 million, 33 minus 19, right? If you're drafting a quarterback at 7, you're going to spend like around $7 million on his contract. So you're saving a little bit of money. But again, the question is there's two. Are you going to eat $19 million this year, and then he's got a $10 million bonus that's due like on the third day of the new league year, and that's going to be painful to pay him that and then trade him. You know what I mean? So I mean, I think there's a scenario where you can maybe push that down the line a little bit, or you can even ask a team that's getting him to help you in that, with a little bit of that. But those are questions we can't answer. It's a problem. It's something that needs to be talked about, though, because that's driving the discussion, is the money and how much it's going to cost to do this. But the right football move is to move on.
Absolutely. And in the interest of being fair, I need to reiterate, you and I both knew, we said it very early on in doing our draft podcast last year, and we said it later in the process, it was almost a futile conversation to talk about the Lions selecting a quarterback last year. They weren't going to select a quarterback last year. Not in Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn's year, where they had the opportunity to show people whether or not they, quote unquote, had what it takes. You're not going to draft a guy to sit him on your bench. So in fairness, Scott, to people out there, that was the argument that we heard from many people, and you and I both agreed with that. To me, okay, when we have these conversations, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn were going to do, because, quite frankly, that was self-centered, selfish thinking. That wasn't a pick in the best interest of the Detroit Lions.
No.
That was a pick in the best interest of Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. That's just the way it is. I mean,
from some of the things we heard from Dan Campbell today and Brad Holmes is this is a forward-looking mentality. This isn't what are we doing right now this year to get us in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
If they're thinking like that, I think that's flawed. The things that we hear it makes me hope that they are looking at, all right, we are what we are right now. Forward thinking, we have to move on from the quarterback, because even in the best case, we're not winning a lot of football games.
Well, I think you'll agree with me. The one thing, Bob Quinn won me over very early on because I liked Bob Quinn's vision for this team and how he said he was going to go about doing it. Talk is cheap.
Did he?
He didn't follow through with it, okay?
Yeah.
But so that's why I always warn people, I love the idea of Bob Quinn. The actual implementation of Bob Quinn was a disaster. And that's why, to me, I don't blame fans, because I'm right there with you. I'm not arguing with you. I love some of the things that I've already heard from Holmes and in particular Campbell. Love it. It's music to my ears, okay?
But it's just words right now.
It's all it is.
Back it up.
It's all it is. I can't. I'm not getting excited about words anymore. Like that's not like there's been a sequence of kind of emotional reactions to the Lions where you protect your poor Whittle heart, right? And yes, I said Whittle with a W, all right? About 10 years ago, it was like, I'm not going to let them ruin my day anymore. So the new one is, I'm not listening anymore. I'm not, anything that they say until they show it, I'm paying no attention to it.
So it's a dude who walks into the room and eventually kicks you in the nuts, right?
Yeah.
So a couple years ago, we had a new guy come into the room and kind of distracted you, and he kicked you in the nuts. So right now, are you wearing a cup?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's really, that's what it comes down to. So, look, just to look back, would it have been in the best interest if they had their quarterback of the future on the roster right now? Yeah. It would have been in their best interest because, right now what you're talking about is Scott, what could be, let's be honest, and we're going to start with quarterbacks today. You were talking about the Lions potentially going with what, the fourth option? I mean, it is possible, folks. I saw a mock yesterday, by the way, that had five quarterbacks in it, in the top 10. 5.
Who was the fifth one?
I don't think it's going to be that much. I forget. I knew.
Was
you'd
it
ask
Mac
me that,
Jones
and
or
I
Kyle
forget.
Trask?
I think it was Trask.
Okay.
But there were five quarterbacks in the top 10. I'm telling you, as sure as I'm sitting here, and you yell at me if you disagree, there's going to be 4. There will be 4 in the top 10 this year. There will be 4 quarterbacks in the top 10.
It is very easy to see that happen.
Yeah.
So real quick before we hit the top 10, this is the intriguing thing about Stafford is that Stafford's cap hit for any team that he were to get traded to is in the first year I want to say it's like $19.5 million, which it's it sounds like a ton of money, but for quarterbacks it's really not that much. So he comes at a bit of a bargain for what he is as a player for 2 seasons. So I think that's intriguing for some teams who are in win now mode. Like you could see Indianapolis thinking, if we had Matt Stafford instead of Phillip Rivers, where are we in the playoffs? Mm-hmm. You could see Washington thinking our defensive line is so dominant and we have some pieces on offense. If we have a quarterback in this division, maybe things are different for us.
Maybe they beat Tampa. I mean, all jokes aside, maybe they beat Tampa.
That defensive line is ferocious, and it's just going to get better as it goes. So, I mean, there are some places where he becomes intriguing in the price that they would have to pay in compensation. Financial compensation is not that great. Obviously, it's a matter of what do you have to give up to get him, and that's going to be the interesting thing going forward. I think there's a market for him. I really do.
Oh, no question.
Deshaun Watson, his situation muddies that market because obviously he's going to go somewhere else, and that takes one suitor out of the mix. But we'll see. I think there's the potential for there to be a parting and a way to do it in which it's a nod to Matt Stafford as a player, and now we're going to send you somewhere where you have a chance to win now. I think it's a great thing for him.
Yeah, and there are going to be opportunities. I think you mentioned a couple. I think if Pittsburgh makes a decision that they're going to move on from Ben, because Ben suddenly looks his age, let's be honest.
Yeah, he has for a couple years.
There are a lot of potentials that are out there. It's just a question of, okay, are they going to pull the trigger? I think they are, Scott. I do. I think this is the end, and I wish Matthew Stafford well. I think he's been a class guy, and he has done nothing but good things in his time here.
Still warrior.
Yeah.
Think about when he first the stuff that came, the whole
China
doll stuff.
China doll.
And now what he is as a player, it's just incredible.
It's
so draft-wise.
He took it personally, dude.
He
took it personally.
Wouldn't you have too?
Yep.
I mean, you know. So I mean, he's been a great quarterback. I'm not saying that he's anything but he's a great quarterback. It's just it's almost like the timing of what he is as a player doesn't fit with the rest of their franchise right now. It just doesn't. They are in total rebuild mode. The retooling thing is just. I mean, they were historically bad on defense. If you look at their pieces on defense, there's not a lot there. They have a decision to make with Kenny Golladay. You have Quintez Cephas assigned as a receiver, and then you have Geronimo Allison who opted out. But that's it. Marvin Jones is a free agent. There's a lot of what ifs right now.
Scott, I will go this far. My partner on a show here on Woodward Sports, Joik Bell, Baligian and Bell show. My partner and I were talking about this. I'm convinced that the Detroit Lions in 2019 were a worse football team than the team, in 2020 were worse than the football team in 2019. The difference was in one person. It was Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
That team was worse. That defense was worse, period. The reason why they went 3-13 in 2019 is because, well, Matthew Stafford missed those slew of games.
Yeah, he missed 8 games, yeah.
And, this team was awful. And so he asked me, what would you legitimately be looking at in 2021? And I said, you can't think about wins with this team. There's too many things. They could easily go 5-11 next year, okay? 5-11. And be a lot better than that team was in 2020, Scott.
They could.
I mean, that's the crazy
the
thing.
point.
So you can't think about wins right now.
Yeah.
That's how far away they are.
Yeah, and it's more just developing and building pieces, forward thinking. I mean, you're not bringing in free agents. So you're not doing things that right now are costly, because it's tough to see them, like you just said, it's tough to see them winning more than 5 or 6 games in the best of outlooks. It just is. So let's get into some quarterbacks. Obviously Trevor Lawrence is what Trevor Lawrence is. He was incredible as a freshman 3 seasons ago. As far as your prototype quarterback, the guy that everybody thinks of when they think NFL quarterback, it's him. 6'5" and whatever, 6'6", 230 pounds, super mobile, capable of creating and being productive when stuff breaks down, and it's going to break down no matter where he goes. In Jacksonville, is their offensive line going to protect him? Mm-hmm. So he's going to have to be creative and do things outside the structure of plays, and this is what we're seeing. That's the trend of the new mold of NFL quarterback, is guys who are productive outside the structure of a play, because when things break down, it can't be just, we're going to take a sack there.
Mm-hmm.
Move out, get outside the pocket, make a throw, move the change with your feet, those kind of things. He can do all those things. He's, it's hard to see where there are negatives with him. I would say that maybe this is an indictment on Clemson a touch, but has he improved or really entrenched his position from what he looked like as a freshman? And I would say no. I think he's a similar looking player, which is still good enough to be quarterback 1 in this class.
Didn't everybody know that 2 years ago, that this was a guy, when it was his turn, in all likelihood, he was going to go number 1 overall?
Yeah, he's lights out. He's a great prospect. That doesn't mean that he goes to the NFL and things are rosy and he throws 40 touchdown passes as a rookie and it just comes easy. No, there's a big step up, but from a prospect standpoint, he's as good as it's been for a while. He is. There are players, I don't know that we even really need to discuss him too much, other than that he's quarterback 1. Then there's a group, and there's a group of 3, and it's Justin Fields from Ohio State, Trey Lance from North Dakota State, and Zach Wilson from BYU. And
I really didn't know that he liked Zach Wilson. I found out after the fact, but I always make fun of Scott for his man crushes, okay? But then I found out we kind of have, we should be like Monica and Brandy. We could sing That Boy Is Mine. We could do a duet. That Boy Is Mine. You sure?
You sing and I'll starry-eyed.
No, we're both big fans of Zach Wilson from BYU.
Yeah.
To me, and it was funny because I remember I was talking on Twitter and some people are going, "Oh, look who he's played." And the bowl game really opened up a lot of eyes, because it wasn't, look, did they play a super team? No. But what he did in that game, it was just like, you're asking this guy, what are you asking this guy to do? He'll go out and do it.
Yeah, we're looking at traits-based stuff. We're not looking at college production. That's why Lance is in the discussion here, because college production is sort of an afterthought. It's more traits. It's more, what does he do? How accurate is he? Looking forward, what is he capable of? And so these 3 guys, do you want to start with Fields? Where do you want to start?
No, you start with Zach Wilson. Let's go with Zach Wilson.
Okay. All right.
We went straight to the appetizer, past the appetizer. We're on the main course right now.
Yeah. So Zach Wilson, kind of a 1-year wonder. BYU creates an offense for him in the offseason, and it's not difficult. It wouldn't be difficult for NFL teams to figure out how he works at the next level, because it's obvious what BYU did for him worked, because he was electric this year. He was electric. Now, he's fun to watch. There are times when it's almost too much, like you didn't need to throw that way. right? It doesn't need to be an underhand pass and a no-look pass at the same time.
Yeah.
But having said that, he's capable of doing that and getting it there accurately, which is crazy. It's just, there are moments with him where it's just like, yeah, that's crazy. And I don't, talking about him and Mahomes, I'm talking stylistically. I'm not saying that he's Mahomes at the next level. But stylistically, they're similar. They can do things from very different arm angles and off platform, and his footwork doesn't need to be flawless and perfect for him to throw the ball with accuracy, and he throws it everywhere. Either boundary, middle of the field, deep. He throws an incredible deep ball. There are times when he'll, I don't want to say predetermine a throw, but what it looks like, he is pre-snap, predetermined where he wants to go with the ball. That's dangerous. There are also times when he'll force a ball into an area of the field where it's dangerous. There's a play against, I guess it doesn't matter so much, but there's a play where there's a slant. It's a slant route. And what they're trying to do is get the safety to come up and look at the running back who's running laterally along the line of scrimmage, and they want the slant to hit after the safety moves, but the safety doesn't bite on the running back. So the safety squats on the slant, and he still throws it, and the receiver gets lit up. And those kind of things make me go, is this predetermined stuff? That's a bad decision, right? That is not a decision that a quarterback should make. If anything, you gotta deal with that, not throw it, or get outside.
Do what you can with your legs. Sure.
Can't make that throw. Yeah. But there are times when that does pop up. But there are so many other times when he'll look off a safety with his eyes and then throw the ball, just rip a throw into a super tight window. And I understand that they didn't play anybody, but when we're talking about quarterbacks, we're talking about accuracy. And when he's accurate, it almost doesn't matter what the coverage is. I mean, he's super accurate. He'll fit the ball 15, 20 yards or deeper down the field into super tight windows. And the interesting thing with him that stands out is, and this is more release and footwork type stuff, but he can throw with anticipation where not everything is like a seed. Not everything's a fastball. He can throw with anticipation where there's a little more touch on his throws when he needs to, but he can also rip it when he needs to. And that's I think one of the things that stood out in the bowl game is that deep dig where he made that throw, and everybody's eyes kind of popped open like, wow, that's the arm strength there. But he is he a perfect prospect? No, but for what he is as a player, and I think I'm underselling him a little bit, to be honest. What he is as a player and as a prospect, I think he's as good as Burrow was.
That's a big statement. With your trained eye, would you put him 2 on this list?
Without a doubt.
Would you put him 1 on this list?
I'd want to have that conversation.
You hear that?
It feels like it's hyperbole to say that you'd want to have a discussion away from Trevor Lawrence being the first pick. But when we're talking about some of the things that he's capable of doing, again, sometimes there's too much flash with the way he plays, but he does things that are rare. He's really able to do things outside the structure of a play that sets him apart from a lot of other quarterbacks. And he's really fun to watch, but behind some of that, outside the structure is the very disciplined footwork. It's very smart quarterbacking. It's understanding timing and tempo and rhythm of offense. And there's a lot of what BYU did for him there, right? There is, but from a trait standpoint, he's got it all. I mean, he does. And would I put him over Trevor Lawrence? I think I'd have a hard time doing that. I would definitely want to have that conversation, though. It's a little bit like last year when people were talking about the Bengals, Cincinnati talking about Burrow, but including Justin Herbert in that conversation.
Yep.
And everybody thought I was nuts by saying that.
Remember that.
That's a conversation that did happen, and now you understand why, because you see what Herbert is capable of doing, and that was more of a traits-based look.
I told you I missed on him. I always like to call myself out. I didn't get it. I told you that. I don't know if you remember me saying that.
Yeah,
I heard so much. Every time I watched him, he looked I was about to say pedestrian. He looked like just a good quarterback. There was nothing that made me go, ooh, wow, he's unbelievable. He's just a good quarterback.
That Oregon offense really did not help him.
Yeah.
It really didn't.
He had a heck of a year. Justin
He
Herbert
did.
had
Nobody would have thought. Nobody coming into the season would have thought Herbert would have done what he did, though.
All
so
right.
it's easy to say that now. But there was a discussion in Cincinnati between Herbert and Burrow. There absolutely was. I'm not saying that there should be with Jacksonville, but I would entertain it because I think Wilson's good enough that you could have that discussion. You could.
Next on the list, where would you go? Because we mentioned there is a top 4 in this draft. Make no mistake about it. And I think when the draft eventually happens, I think you're going to see the top 4. Now, that doesn't mean that there might be a couple guys that, are taken in the first round, because I think there might be a couple more guys taken in the first round. But, Scott, it seems like there's a top 4, and then there's a next group. If you were ranking them, who would you put the third in that group?
Trey Lance.
Trey Lance over
Yeah.
Justin Fields.
Yes.
Somebody, and I always
I feel like I'm going to get crushed.
no, I always say this to you, okay? Because
I'm in
I
trouble.
don't know if this human being wants me to mention his
gentle.
name, but somebody who I really respect, and I think you respect too, is absolutely in love with Lance. Absolutely in love with Lance. And I think people look at him, this is just one man's opinion, I'll let you, gimmick, look where he played. Go down the box, right? Check off the boxes. Gimmick, look where he played, inexperience, all that stuff. But it sounds like this is a guy that unquestionably is going to be a top 10 pick. Sure looks that way at least, right?
Yeah, so I have friends who, how do I put this? A little more thinking old school, don't like him as much as, say, like I do.
Okay.
Right? And I think there's a desire, just because he's played 1 year and because he played at a lower level of competition, to push him into like the second round. And my mentality is quarterbacks are so coveted that if he's a second round pick, he's a first round pick. That's just how it is, right? If you're...
Hi, Mac Jones. Hi. Kyle
Late-
Trask. See you down there.
What's
Late
up, first
guys.
round, those guys.
They're going to
But-
go, though. I'm telling you right now.
The fifth-year option's a big deal for
Yep.
the quarterback position. But with Lance, it's the upside of what he could be going forward. He's played 1 year at North Dakota State. But that year is on par with the year that Trevor Lawrence had as a freshman. It just is. And from a standpoint of traits-based, like looking at, what does he do as a player, the lesser competition is almost not relevant in the conversation of quarterback play.
Yeah.
Because you're either accurate or you're not, right? You either can read defenses or you can't. You're able to make plays out of the structure of an offense or you can't. With him, he's accurate all over the place. He seems to have a really unique understanding of leverage, of where his receivers have leverage over a defender deep down the field. And he'll put the ball into a tight window where a defender doesn't have a chance, but his receiver does. He's a young player, but by no means does that mean he is not ready. That's going to be the conversation is that just because he's young, it shouldn't mean that he's not ready to he's not ready to go, right? So is he a player who I think could come in and play as a rookie and be productive? I don't know. I don't know that any of these guys are really that guy. They can, but Lance does things where his upside is so. I guess that's the discussion is what's the upside of a player? He's young. His upside's through the roof.
You
He
told
reminds
me. You told me. Is that where you're going with it?
Yeah.
Who would you compare him to?
So stylistically, he's a little bit like Steve McNair.
Ooh.
Yeah, and McNair's a throwback, but it's from this is he's big and he's strong, and I think he's a lot stronger than he thinks he is. He can make every throw you'd want to make, and so could McNair, right? McNair got penned as a running quarterback more than anything, but McNair was very accurate. He really was. But when he's running with the ball, he's a little bit like a running back, but he's built like a fullback. He's really hard to bring down. He'll run you over, right? So
Do you know who that sounds like?
who? Tell me.
Hi, Josh.
He is.
I love Josh Allen.
He's not as big as Josh Allen is, but
Nobody
is. He's significantly more accurate as a passer. He's so much more polished as a player already than Josh Allen was as a senior.
Yeah.
He just is. And it's I think it's you got to recognize what you're seeing with him is that he understands where to put the ball. They run a lot of mirror concepts on offense. So if they're going 4 wide, these two guys are running the same type of routes as these two guys, and it's his job to figure out where to exploit the defense, and he does a really good job of that. He'll stand in the pocket and get smoked to make a throw, whereas other guys will not.
Sure.
It's interesting with Wilson and with Lance specifically, they will, in the play action game, they will turn their back on the defense to execute a play action fake, and then they'll get it turned around, and they're smart enough to figure out where to go with the ball super fast. Where other guys are in the spread out offense, and they need to see it from the snap, right? It's a little bit of a scheme type thing, but these guys are super smart quarterbacks. They understand, intrinsically where to go with the ball and where to exploit a defense and where the weaknesses are. He's super fluid. Everything he does looks easy, right? It's interesting to watch him run because he'll run away from you or he'll run you over. He'll do all those things. So I think that he's going to be one of those guys that comes up a little bit. But I'm coming at it from quarterbacks are so valuable, you should take a guy on his upside. And I understand that others are looking at it from he played as a freshman in a lower conference, and that scares me, right? So, it just kind of depends on where you fall.
Scott, I'm going to say it again. We were talking about this late in the show. It's an investment. I don't care what anybody says. Make an investment. It's not what he's going to be in a couple of years. It's what he's going to be in 3-4 years. I mean, isn't that what you're investing in?
Absolutely. And with him, I think his ceiling is as high as anybody in this class. If you're looking at 3 to 4 years, he needs to develop, right?
Yeah.
He needs time. But that doesn't mean he's raw. It doesn't mean he's not capable of playing right now. It just means he needs some time. And with the Lions situation, if you're telling me that the Lions are staying with Stafford for a season, but they're going to draft a quarterback, he is the perfect guy to do that. Let him sit for a year and just kind of absorb and just kind of, get familiar with the process. And then at that point you can move on from Stafford. But, I don't think he's, like I said, I don't think he's anywhere near as raw as some are making it seem. His season in 2019 was incredible. I think the people at Pro Football Focus would tell you that it's one of the best statistical seasons, like analytics seasons they've ever seen. I think you can make the comparison to Trevor Lawrence as a freshman. I don't think it's out of the realm to do it. It's just a matter of, do you value the competition level? To me, as a quarterback, doing the things that he does and as accurate as he is and the understanding that he has of offense, I think you can make that comp. So I would ask you then, if Trevor Lawrence was in this class and was draftable as a freshman, where would he go?
People would have said back then, and they did say back then, 1.
Okay,
that's what everybody said.
I think that's
let's
the
be
comp
honest.
for what Trey Lance is.
You
as
got
a player.
it.
That's where I am with Lance.
Except there isn't Clemson next to his name. I mean, really. And if that's
it.
As shallow as you're thinking, that's your own damn fault. We have about 6 minutes.
Okay.
So Justin Fields, because we both agree, and this seems to be the general consensus that there's a 4 and then there's everybody else. Justin Fields is a guy that, at least in the court of public opinion, because I was having fun with you tweeting on New Year's Day, Scott, is he a fit? Did he blow up your board? All that stuff. And people were having some fun with it as well. But Justin Fields, another guy that's seemingly going to go top 10.
Yeah, and he's, to me, he's 4 on that list. Ohio State does a lot of half-field reads, and this is not a knock on him, and we've talked about that before, that sometimes you can't get into the weeds too much on the things you don't know. So I don't know what he's being asked to do, but they run a lot of half-field reads where he gets locked onto his primary receiver and he stays locked on. And there are times when I don't blame him for doing that, because he's eventually going to come open. And Ohio State's O-line is so good that he doesn't have to deal with much pressure.
Sure.
So he can stand in the pocket and wait for that guy to come open. And this is where Fields pops, is the ability to make big downfield throws accurately. He does it. It's one of those things where you'll see him hit a guy 30, 40 yards down the field, and the receivers don't have to slow themselves, or there's not a lot of contested catch stuff, because he's hitting them in stride and they're just running away from everybody. And so that's where he pops. And I think the big moments on him are huge moments, and they're great for him. But it's more of, with him, I think you have to design some running stuff for him, because he's thick and he's a little bigger, and I think of him a little bit like the way Dak Prescott plays. So where there's a little bit of, I see a little bit of rawness in his understanding of offense, but at Ohio State, with those receivers, those guys are coming open. So, again, we're not going to knock him because of the things that we don't know that Ohio State's teaching him. But, super mobile. He's very accurate at times. He moves. He's smooth and fluid. He does. He moves very easy. When we talk about Trask and Mac Jones, these guys those are guys who are. It's just there are moments when it feels like their feet are in mud.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Slow twitch, guys who can't escape and make plays outside the structure. They're just not capable of it.
You better protect Mac Jones in particular.
You better.
I mean, Scott, I don't see a future for him, but Lord knows I've been wrong before.
Well, I mean, that's the thing with Jones is that he needs to be very clean in the pocket. With Fields, you'll see some polish to his game. He's got a nice little shoulder fake where he'll get corners to come up and safeties to come up and bite on routes, and then he'll go over the top. He can rip throws. I mean, he's got a good arm. He's got a good feel for what their offense does. I think his release sometimes feels a little bit long or elongated, and that gives him some accuracy issues. Again, we have to consider that, we don't know what Ohio State's asking him to do. But, I mean, as far as quarterbacking goes, he's a really good prospect. It's just, I think the other three have upside higher than his without the questions that he does bring, right? So, which is, what's he going to do when he's got to deal with heavy amounts of pressure at the NFL level? Is he capable of getting outside and making throws outside, or is he going to just tuck and run?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So those are the questions because just like with Mac Jones, you don't see Ohio State give up a lot of pressure to the quarterback. So he can sit in the pocket and just kind of pick apart a defense. But I can promise you, at the NFL level, you're not going to be able to do that. So with him, I think there's a lesser ability for him to make plays outside structure. But he's accurate, and he's mobile, and he's hard to bring down at times. He's a good prospect. I think he's fourth for me on the list. But I think he should go.
He'll probably go top 10, right?
Yeah, I mean he's a very good prospect.
You know why I was laughing at you?
It's a quarterback hungry league.
Well, I was laughing at you because it's the argument could be made. Yeah, but playing in the Big Ten, he hasn't played anybody. Big Ten's awful. I love it, but it's an awful conference.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, I think
that's why I think the tape that he put on Clemson is going to help him out a little bit.
Yeah, and being able to play through what he played through, right? I mean, I don't think the tape on Alabama helps him. But it's exactly.
He was banged up. It was the wincing. It hurt watching him. You know, I mean, it really did. It hurt once. All right, we got just a couple minutes to wrap this up. And again, we're going to be doing this every week leading up to the draft, including after the draft. We're going to have like a full draft recap, not only about the Lions, but some other secrets out there. Each week, we're going to talk about a position. We're going to talk about, Scott, you let me know what you want to talk about next week. I'm just going to listen to you. You're the expert. Is there anybody down the list that you kind of have a circle around saying, ooh, maybe take a chance on this guy for that later round type of thing?
Not really. I mean,
there aren't a lot of secrets.
No, there aren't. And it's if you're taking a quarterback, take him early. I mean, the NFL is I mean, everybody is starved for quarterback play, for good quarterback play. That's why I mentioned earlier, if a scout has a quarterback graded in round 2, you're taking him in round 1. It's just how it works.
Yeah.
So I think there are 6. Kyle Trask is like a statue, but he's huge, right? And Mac Jones is what he is. And I think you pegged him. I think he needs to be kept clean. And then there are the 4 that we talked about. I mean, there's some prospects that I think can make a name for themselves as the process unfolds, but it's going to be tough this year in particular. It's going to be tough for some of them to elevate themselves into that conversation, but they will. I mean, if we're talking Lions-driven stuff, you'd really want the Lions to end up with one of the first 4.
Absolutely. No doubt.
In some way.
Yep. If you have any questions, by the way, when we tweet this out, you probably already know we tweeted it out. But if you've gotten this far, make sure if you want to ask any questions, he's at Bischoff_Scott. Not only will we talk about it on Twitter, but we'll include some of these questions in future shows, because this is something, again, Scott, I always joke, I'm a mockaholic. I am. I look at these mocks. I look at these mocks too much. But at the same time, I'm also the first guy to tell you I don't put a lot into them right now. I like to talk to guys like him, and in a couple months, we'll start to find out what leagues like is as well. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
No, we're good.
All right, most
We'll keep it
importantly,
rolling.
we want to thank you guys for joining us. Thanks to our help here. We had a fantastic producer helping us today. The Fish in the house as well. We always appreciate what the Fish does. We'll talk to you soon on Woodward Sports.